Hello, family. I bring you good news today. Today, I'll be talking about 5 top lessons that I learned from Vusi Thembekwayo. I started business entrepreneurship in 2017. Before then, the 2 years prior, 2015, I tried my first business and it failed. Then in 2017, I bounced back, and here we are today in 2022. It's been 5 years. Now, tell you what, when I started my journey in 2017, if somebody had told me that it would take 5 years to meet the great legend Vusi Thembekwayo, I would have doubted. Because per my timelines, I probably, in my thinking, thought maybe 10, 15 years of work, but sometimes life comes with hacks, and by reason of relationship, one of my big brothers, futurist Kwame, gives me a call and says, we're headed to South Africa and we are meeting Vusi Thembekwayo, For most people, Vusi Thembekwayo is a multi-millionaire, he's a speaker, he's a leader, he's a venture capitalist. He's so many things to so many people, but I personally have the rare privilege to call Vusi Thembekwayo a big brother. I have one of the rarest privilege to call him my personal leader. I have one of the rarest privilege again, to call him the legend that he is, guys. So, took a flight this year to go meet Vusi Thembekwayo. I know most of you have been waiting for this video because I promised that I was going to do this, So, tell you what, there are loads of things you learn from Vusi if you even spend 30 minutes with him. Around business, around life in general, personal life, around marriage, around family, around finance. There's so many things to just learn from VT that whenever I'm in front of him, I'm like always on my phone and I'm not WhatsApping anybody. I'm not on Instagram. I'm on my notes. I'm constantly taking lessons from the Black Dragon, And if I'm to tell you the lessons that I've learned from VT, there are so many, like so many that you can't fathom, across personal, across business. It's just so wide, across speaking. And today I just decided to just sample 5. I may be dropping them in bits and pieces for you guys. But then, for me, one thing stood out the first time I met the legend Vusi Thembekwayo, We're having a conversation in Stain City, where he is, at the clubhouse. And it was the first time I was in such a place, to be in such wealth and class. And we're having a several Dao meeting, and then he says, I want rooibos tea. What they say, when you go to Rome, do what the Romans do. So when the waiter asked me, Moses, what do you want? I said, I also want rooibos tea. And they brought the tea and we started sipping on it whilst having intellectually stimulating conversations. And the legend said something that caught my attention, so I wrote it down. He said that the problem with our generation is we believe in and do things that we do not understand. We do not know who it originated from, but we just believe in them and we just do them. And for me, that set me thinking, because one of the things I noticed about the great legend Vusi Thembekwayo is the fact that he's constantly asking questions. Even at the level and depth of his knowledge and that wealth of wisdom, he's constantly asking questions about anything that he doesn't understand. And for me, it brings me back to the early stages of when I started business entrepreneurship, because I used to tell my team that a question-asking company will become an answer-providing company. The guy who takes time off to question things in the spirit of wanting to know will always be the master at his game. It's very, very important. The Bible says that the Queen of Sheba, she had visited Solomon and she was flabbergasted. She was mesmerized by the very thing she saw in Solomon's palace. And she took time off to ask of the things she had seen, which was a display of Solomon's wisdom. Even the Queen of Sheba took time off to ask, what are you asking? Who are you asking it from? At a point, I remember when I became born again, I would ask very hard questions. I would ask, where does God come from? Who is God? what is God? Very interesting questions. And then in the church that I used to fellowship in, I'm not going to mention any names, the pastor told me that I'm going mad. But my foundations was, the very same pastor had told me that I come from God. So my thought was, if I come from God, then where does God come from? Because if my father is Frank Brintuata, of him I come, of his loins I come. And I asked him, Daddy, where do we come from? Where do we go from here? He goes like, oh, we come from Inche in the western region. My father just showed me where I'm coming from. By that alone, I can tell where I'm headed to. You know, so for me, it was bothering me till I found a man called Pastor Obed, who took time off to explain who God is, what God is, why God was existing in the first place, and all of those things, you know. So taking time off to question everything is important in the spirit of wanting to know. I remember one time I asked, why do we marry? Why must a man kneel down to propose to a woman? What's the wisdom behind it? You know, a lot of things happen in our generation, in our current generation, that we are very, very, very clueless about. We need to take time off, get back to our roots, and question things. And you know, that's one of the greatest things I learned about Vusi. The guy is constantly asking questions. Recently, he was in Ghana for my big brother's event, that filled the UPS auditorium with futurists coming. And the first speaker that spoke was Dr. Obed Obinyade. He spoke about impact, influence, and income. And he touched on time, you know, but within his time frame of speaking, he didn't have enough time to exhaust when he spoke about time. So he comes to sit down, and I was VT's or Vusi's personal aide for the day, so I was sitting right behind him. And so Dr. Obed comes to sit by Vusi, and Vusi greets him and says, that was a great talk. And then the next thing he asks him, he takes time off to ask, says, when you were speaking, you spoke about time, you spoke about character. And they delved the conversation into time and character. I'm like, but wait, he knows everything he needs to know about time already. No, he actually took time off to ask. And the next day in the master class, when he was speaking, somebody asked him a question and he said, I made notes from Dr. Obed. I'm like, Vusi made notes? He says, I made notes from Dr. Obed yesterday. So the thing when you are met with a problem is that throw time at it. When you throw time at it, just leave it. It is the test of everything. It is the universal test of everything. And I'm like, even the great legend Vusi Thembekwayo takes time off to ask questions. How much more you guys? You know, so it's very, very important. It's one of the biggest problems of our day. Now, the next lesson that I'll share with you guys was, whilst the tea was ongoing, you know, we're having conversations, and Vusi's amazed at my age, because he goes like, what? How can you be this young? Are you? So he asks my age, I tell him, and he hits the table and he goes like, fuck sakes, and he jumps up like, what? How can you be that young? Are you serious? And I'm like, yes, I'm serious. And then Kwame affirms that, yes, I'm actually that young. And he goes like, you know, the problem is when you are young and ahead of your generation. And for me, it hits me the most because he didn't just say I was young. He said I was ahead of my generation. And he said something. He said, the problem when you are young and ahead of your generation is your environment. Your own people will kill you. So what's the remedy? Move around and keep coming back home from time to time. And when he said that, he left it there. But I came back home, pondered on it, and I could appreciate where he was coming from, because I see examples in my scriptures. I see examples all around me. There was a man called Joseph in the Bible. He was young, and he was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his generation. He has a dream, and in the dream, he sees 11 stars bowing to him, including the sun and the moon, and he goes to tell his father. And when he told his father said, do you mean I, your father, who is the sun, your mother, who is the moon, and your 11 brothers, who are the 11 stars, will bow to you? Joseph was way ahead of his generation. Joseph was way, way, way ahead of its time. What killed him? His environment. But it was a blessing. His brothers thought they had killed him. But notice that the change of environment into Egypt made Joseph what he was in his day. He made him one of the greatest mastermind strategists of his day. He made him the ruler of his time. So sometimes as young people, when you're ahead of your generation, just change your location a bit. It adds up to value. It really adds up to value, because whenever you are scarce, it makes you profound when you show up. It's very, very important. Now, the third thing about VT that I learned, that, like I said, he shared so many things, so many, absolutely amazing, fantastic big brother in such a person. The third thing he said is that in our generation, we celebrate the heights of buildings without knowing the depths of the foundation. And I was like, what? Say that again? He says, we celebrate the heights of buildings without knowing the very depths of the foundations of those buildings. And again, as a student of life, I came back, decided to ponder over it, and I realized something is the fact that, it took 6 years to dig the foundations of the Burj Khalifa, which is the world's tallest building as we have it today. 6 years to dig the foundations of the Burj Khalifa. It took 4 years to build it into what we see today. I've been to Dubai, I've been to the Burj Khalifa, I've been to the 124th floor. Guys, the view up there, goodness me, the view at the top, you understand that all and everything is possible. I've always said that Dubai is a place of possibilities. If your mind thinks small and you're on the 124th floor of the Burj Khalifa, you will know that all dreams are possible. 4 years to build, 20 million man-hours to construct the Burj Khalifa. Take that again. 6 years to dig the foundation, 4 years to build it, and collectively, it took 20 million man-hours to put together the Burj Khalifa as we see it today. You see, you can only test the heights of a building like that when there are strong winds, when there are problems. You look at a generation today where everything that people are seeing is the facade, everything is on just the front. So people can't tell the real foundations of people. So when people are hit with various problems, that is when you are able to tell what they are made of what sort they are. That is when you're able to tell their very foundations, on what grounds are they rooted in. And so one of the things that, for me, I never ran away from, maybe because my name is Brintu, which means a warrior, is the fact that when challenges come, I understand that I took time off to work my foundations. I understand that I took time off to prepare for the days that are coming. And so I'll wage it through and I'll win it through. It's very, very important, So it's not enough to look at the heights of a building. It is important to consider the depth of that building's foundation. What it means, guys, is that build capacity. What it means is that get deeper. Read everything that you come across. Understand what it means to have a fortified, solid character. Build capacity for the kind of future, for the kind of vision of your life that you envision to see. Build capacity. Now, we're having a conversation again. It's still ongoing. We're having tea and we begin to talk about companies, building systems, processes, and then he said something that I wrote down. And for this, guys, I came back home and I quickly implemented it in my system of thinking and in my business. I think that if you're a young person who's running a business across this continent, across the world, this one would be for you. You will need this. VT said something. He says that have someone who anticipates what will go wrong in the business, and then that person should build people and processes around it so that when it happens, it is sorted out. Take that again. He says that have someone who anticipates what will go wrong in the business, and then that person should build people and processes around it so that when it happens, it is sorted out. It looks like he's thinking like God. How does God think? The Bible says that he thinks from the end to the beginning. He doesn't think from beginning to the end. And so in his holistic room of thinking, he has actually taken time off to think from the very end, and he's mitigating the kind of challenges and problems that's going to come his way as an entrepreneur, as a businessman. So within your organization, do you have people who can anticipate the things that will go wrong? Are you a kind of a person, are you a leader who can sit down and anticipate the things that will go wrong? You know, this morning, before I showed up all here looking all nice, all decked, you know, to record this, I went on Instagram and then I saw one of my brothers, Dave Obada. He's currently in Dubai, amazing, fantastic, young, gifted man. He's in Dubai and I noticed that he's done a video, a reel, and then his caption was simple, what if? And I did comment under it. I said, I have times in my meditations called the what ifs of this life. I have thought of some of the most weirdest things. I have thought of some of the most terrible things. What if this? What if that? What if this? And my aim for that is not to live in anxiety or fear. No, it is to be in a room and a mental space of thinking where the what ifs of this life have so anticipated the things that I have thought about and built a mental fortification for them so that it doesn't take me by surprise. So most of the time, certain things happen around me and people expect me to react a certain way. And every time I shock them by my kind of reaction, simply because I have spent time alone in my closet, in my meditations, to consider the what ifs when things go wrong, and I have built fortitude and processes around them. That was what VT was teaching us, to have in our business as a system and as a process. You know, it is very, very important. Now, the fifth lesson that I learned was, this was recently even when we're in Kenya, we're having a conversation at the Moving Pick Nairobi, you know, over some masala tea, this time around not rooibos tea, over some masala tea, and he says that great ideas will die on a fallow mental soil. It hit me so deep. Great ideas will die on a fallow mental soil. Then he says, so let's deal with the fertility of the mind. And man, if you know me, I'm somebody who is so huge on mind stuff. So he says that great ideas, it doesn't matter what, it will die on a land in a mind which is very fallow. So let us deal with the fertility of the soil of your mind. And you know, for me, I've always said that our minds are like gardens. The very thoughts, the very diet that we feed it by means of what we watch, by means of what we see, by means of what we hear, by means of the people we surround ourselves with, the kind of affirmations that we have, they all form part of the very construct of our belief system and the very construct of what we tend to manifest. So your idea can be great, but my question is, your vision can be big, but my question is, what is the fertility of your mind looking like? Have you mixed it with the fertility of other great minds? I remember way before I ever went to Dubai, you would come and see me in my room. I knew almost every corner in the place as though I stayed there. I had invested in reading from His Royal Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, one of my ideals when it comes to leadership. I had read almost everything I could find in Ghana on his books. The first time I went to Dubai, my focus was not clothes, it was his books. Do you know why? For a man to build a system that great, for one man's vision to transcend the span it has done, I needed to mix my mind. I needed to treat the fertility of my, just like as a farmer, when you want to treat the soil, you add manure, you add some fertilizer, you know, you treat the soil so that it can grow the kind of crop you want it to grow. Mind you, you can't grow mango because it has very deep-rooted roots. You can't grow it in any soil. It has to grow in a particular kind of soil. Cocoa cannot be cultivated in any kind of soil apart from a particular kind of soil. Likewise, to dream like the dreamer of Dubai, to dream like the ruler of Dubai will not happen just in it. To dream and think like Vusi Thembekwayo, to dream and think like Moses Biata will not happen on just any kind of soil of the mind. You need to take care of your mind. In addition, take care of your mental health. Be good, guys. And I hope this was helpful. Subscribe to the link below for my YouTube channel. I've got more exciting content coming up. Like, share, and do have a wonderful, 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 wonderful again time. listening to this. Bless you guys.